Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our Lunch and Learn today for Housing Month on a guide for developing sustainable and accessible affordable housing in Edmonton. So we will get started. My name is Heather Curtis. I'm a communications advisor for affordable housing and homelessness at the city. My colleague Nicole Thomas will be doing the Q&A at the end, and Carleen will be giving the presentation on our guidebooks. So first, we will do a land acknowledgement. We recognize we are gathered in collaboration with the Joint Purpose on Treaty 6 territory. This territory is the home and gathering place for diverse Indigenous peoples, the Cree, Blackfoot, Métis, Nakota Sioux, Iroquois, Dene, Inuit, and many others. We know the importance of the treaty and our responsibility to these communities that only in partnership can we create the social change necessary to end homelessness. So first, we'll start off with building housing together, Edmonton's Affordable Housing Guidebooks, and I will turn it over to Carleen.
Is 3.5 years younger than the national average. And we're a diverse city. About 40% of people identify as racialized, and Edmonton is home to the second largest and fastest growing urban Indigenous population in Canada. When it comes to housing, the shortage of affordable housing is acute. There are more than 396,000 homes in Edmonton, but just 18,000 of them are social or affordable housing. According to our housing needs assessment, nearly 1 in 4 renters are in core housing need. Edmonton has a disproportionately high percentage of households in core housing need and severe housing need, the third largest share of households in core housing need in the country, exceeded only by Toronto and Vancouver. My team, the Housing Action Team, was created to scale up the city's efforts to increase overall housing supply, as well as incentivize the type of housing market may not create on its own, including missing middle typology, multi-unit residential infill, transit-oriented housing, and non-market affordable housing. Much of this work is made possible through the funding the city is receiving through the Housing Accelerator Fund. Through HAF, the Government of Canada, via CMHC, is providing funding directly to local governments, which have the jurisdiction to make key decisions related to housing supply in delivering on national housing supply goals. The goal is to create 100,000 new homes that otherwise would not have been developed. Many of the initiatives that HAF encouraged, such as zoning changes to allow for multi-unit development everywhere, were already underway or completed in Edmonton. As an organization, we had to dig deep to identify even more ways to encourage housing and affordable housing development. The federal government originally allocated $175 million in funding for Edmonton over 3 years, contingent on meeting our housing supply targets. This funding is being invested in the delivery of our Housing Accelerator Action Plan. In March of this year, based on progress and being on track to exceeding our targets, an additional $17.4 million was awarded to the city to include more initiatives and more targets. Our work falls into 3 main categories. First, breaking down barriers to infill. This includes updating our zoning bylaw, targeted rezonings in 5 priority growth areas, an infill infrastructure fund to help cover infrastructure upgrades costs in transit-rich areas, and work to promote gentle density by fast-tracking common infill designs like secondary suites and backyard homes. Second, saving time and money. We've done things like pause all sanitary sewer charges, we're phasing out the multi-unit tax subclass, developing auto permitting tools, and so on. And thirdly, supporting affordable housing development. We've developed a new affordable housing administrative standard, which helps flag eligible projects and streamline permitting. We're building resources for developers, including our guidebooks, and we've also designated 11 surplus school sites for affordable housing, opening the door up to 1,800 new homes, including at least 30% as affordable units. Within that work, one of the most practical things we could do was create better tools for developers and housing providers. We heard again and again that people needed clear guidance, not just policies, but how-to resources. So we've developed 3 complementary guidebooks: the Affordable Housing Guidebook, the Sustainable Design Guidebook, and the Accessible Design Guidebook. Each one tackles a different barrier we heard from the sector, and are all designed to be short, practical, and easy to use. This first guidebook is really the foundation of the series. It focuses on affordable housing itself, how to go from an idea to a completed project in Edmonton. We built it through broad outreach with 126 organizations and 16 in-depth interviews with developers, nonprofits, and industry professionals. That consultation helped us capture the real-life barriers people face and the practical advice they wish they had at the start. The guidebook is for both new and experienced groups, really anyone trying to build affordable housing in Edmonton. It walks through each step of the process from early planning to operations, and it connects readers to existing city processes, resources, and partners. The goal was to take what can feel like a maze of funding, approvals, and construction steps and make something that's clear, transparent, and easy to navigate. The guidebook is organized to walk readers through the entire life cycle of an affordable housing project, from concept to operations. It starts with project planning and governance and helps organizations define their role, identify the right team, and decide on an ownership structure, whether that's sole ownership or a partnership model. It then moves into feasibility and funding, which is one of the most critical stages. Securing both land and funding early is key, and the guidebook walks the reader through how to match your project's concept to funding conditions. It includes tools and templates for feasibility analysis and pro formas, so groups can understand whether a project is financially viable before moving forward. Finally, it covers the municipal approvals and delivery process and ends with operations and management, including the most common nonprofit operating models we see in Edmonton. This guidebook is about reducing uncertainty and giving affordable housing providers a clear path from idea to occupancy. Our second guidebook focuses on environmental sustainability, and it ideally reframes how we think about affordability. Rent is only part of what makes housing affordable. Utility bills, maintenance, and building durability also play a big role, especially for low and very low income households who are affected by high energy costs and poor building performance. It's designed as a practical tool for affordable housing developers, helping them integrate sustainable design right from the start. It includes checklists, templates, and real-world case studies to make these ideas accessible. And what's unique about it is its sliding scale approach. Sustainability isn't presented as an all or nothing. The guidebook focuses on energy efficiency, durability, and climate resilience, helping developers avoid expensive retrofits later and keep housing affordable to operate over the long term. The guidebook starts with why sustainability matters financially, showing that energy efficient and climate resilient buildings are not only better for residents and the environment, but also deliver stronger returns on their investment. Lower operating and maintenance costs can offset any higher upfront expenses, which is crucial for nonprofits and affordable housing developers who often face tight operational budgets. The guidebook also tackles common myths that sustainable design is too expensive, too complex, doesn't save money, or isn't a selling point. These misconceptions are still common, but the reality is that sustainability is increasingly required by evolving building codes and can open doors to more funding opportunities. One of the most useful concepts in the guidebook, as I mentioned, is the sliding scale of energy efficient design. Developers can choose their level of investment, from meeting minimum code requirements to pursuing net zero performance depending on their capacity. Even small incremental improvements can result in significant long-term savings. We've also included case studies like Grace Village by the Salvation Army and Parkside North by HomeEd, which show how thoughtful design decisions and renewable energy integration can lead to real measurable savings and better financial sustainability. This guidebook helps organizations plan for sustainability in a way that's achievable, financially sound, and aligned with Edmonton's climate and housing goals. Together with the Affordable Housing Guidebook, this resource supports Edmonton's broader goal of building quality, cost-effective, and sustainable affordable housing and sets the stage for our third guidebook on accessible design. Our newest guidebook in this series focuses on accessibility, specifically how to make barrier-free a standard part of affordable housing rather than something added on at the end. This guidebook is written for everyone involved in the development: builders, architects, housing providers, and operators. It provides practical direction on when and how to introduce accessibility, how to navigate common design constraints, and how to make trade-offs that preserve both functionality and aesthetics. A big message here is that accessibility isn't just about compliance. It's about tenant dignity, livability, and long-term sustainability. When we design for accessibility from the beginning, it benefits everyone, families, seniors, and people with temporary or permanent disabilities. The guidebook also challenges the myth that accessibility is always expensive. When considered early, many features can be built in at little or no added cost, and they often reduce future retrofit expenses. The guidebook starts by explaining why accessibility matters, both socially and economically. For developers, designing accessible and adaptable units helps align projects with the city's policies, improves eligibility for funding, and meets growing demand as Edmonton's population ages. It also improves tenant satisfaction and retention by making units that adapt to people's changing needs over time. The guidebook tackles common myths that accessibility is only for a small group, that it makes buildings look institutional, or that it's too costly. In reality, many accessible features like color contrast, door hardware, or layout adjustments have minimal cost when integrated early and add tremendous value to both tenants and owners. A key framework introduced is the sliding scale of accessibility. It helps developers see accessibility as a spectrum, from basic code compliance to fully barrier-free or universal design. Each step adds value, and every small improvement contributes to a more inclusive environment. Finally, the guidebook includes financial impact analyses and outlines funding opportunities from CMHC, the city, and the province. Programs like CMHC's Affordable Housing Fund, the city's AHIP program, and RAMP can help offset costs, making accessibility both practical and sustainable. The takeaway is that accessible design is simply good design, and it supports independence, equity, and long-term affordability in Edmonton's housing system. Together with the Affordable Housing and Sustainability Guidebooks, this latest resource rounds out our current toolkit, helping Edmonton's affordable housing sector design homes that are inclusive, efficient, and built to last. And then the last item I'll touch on is an upcoming resource that we're working on right now. This draft guidebook, set to release in 2026, focuses on one of the most important and sometimes most challenging parts of affordable housing development, building trust in the community. It's designed for non-market housing developers who receive city land or grants, and it helps them understand what's expected in terms of communication and engagement. Every agreement that the city signs already requires a community communications plan, but council and residents often expect more. They want to understand the project and feel included in the process. The guidebook will explain where engagement is required, where community input can influence outcomes, and how to do it well. It will include decision maps, sample templates, case studies, and connections to city and partner resources like the neighborhood resource coordinators. The goal here is to help developers meet their requirements, reduce friction, and ultimately build stronger support for affordable housing projects across Edmonton. Okay, and that brings me to the end of my slide deck. Thanks so much for listening. I'd love to open it up to the floor for questions or to hear what you're seeing in your own projects. Are there challenges that resources like this could help, or topics that you think that we should explore in future guidebooks? Your feedback is what shapes these tools and our work, so please feel free to share your thoughts and questions. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Carleen. And Carleen mentioned off the top using the Q&A tool, but I think it would just be simpler if you have a question or a comment, just push the hand button or just drop it in the chat, and I can help moderate.
There's a lot of information all at once, but all of these guidebooks are also on our city webpage. We have a resources for affordable housing developers page. So these guidebooks, plus a lot of other things that we've been working on, are on that page, including partner lists, information about land grants, that kind of thing. Yeah,
I've just put the URL that Carleen was referring to in the chat. So it's edmonton.ca/affordable housing developers, where you can find all the guidebooks and links to available grants and other information.
So maybe as we wait for people to think of questions, if they have any, I can just say that for the community building guidebook, one of the first steps we'll be doing is reaching out to folks who have experienced engagement in this way, trying to glean their wisdom. So there's probably some people on the call that we'll be reaching out to.
I see a hand from Colleen.
Hi, thank you for your presentation.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples of projects that have used the guidebooks and have had success?
No, I don't have any discrete examples of someone using the guidebook and then going on to success. They're fairly new, and these projects take time. But I will say that we've been getting good responses from community and using them, especially the more design-based ones. So we've connected with Alberta Eco Trust on the Sustainable Design Guidebook, and they're sort of floating it through their communities as well. So no examples of exact projects, but we've had good feedback of these being used in community and hope that they continue to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I see some questions in the chat from Lara. Are you hearing of any challenges or resistance from developers to build meaningful level of accessibility, and what are they saying?
Yeah, great question, Laura, and happy to see you on this call. I think the challenges and resistance are ones that you would be familiar with as well, and is kind of covered in the guidebook, in that it's too expensive, we can't do it, we're on a tight budget. And so hopefully through these guidebooks and just through mentorship and advocacy, we can break down some of those misconceptions and help folks connect to the funding that's out there. So if they have a perception of it being too expensive, then perhaps there's something that we can do to unlock further funding. But yeah, it's a great question, and it's one of those things that ideally we could help break down.
Sorry, is that a question on the line? Couldn't quite hear that. Nope. Okay, I'm going to go to the question in the chat from Pardeep, who asks, would these handbooks include the MLI Select program?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Affordable Housing Guidebook, it's a static resource, so we tried to keep links alive, but we reference the MLI Select program in our guidebook as something that folks looking to develop affordable housing should pursue. There's certain requirements that the MLI Select program has that work in concert, but they're not exactly one-to-one with the City of Edmonton affordable housing program. And that's one of the things that we try to explain in the guidebook, is that there's all of these different streams of funding out there that all have individual requirements. So if you look at that stuff early, then you can try and align as much as you can early on in your project to tap into as many funding resources as possible. But yeah, we reference MLI Select and encourage folks to adopt that where possible.
I'm seeing another question in the chat from Joanne. Is there subsidized housing available? I'm going to put a link in the chat about how to access housing, if that's what that question is about. And if there's another part of that question, feel free to put a follow up there. I'm seeing some hands raised. Nicholas, over to you.
Yeah, just a quick question, actually kind of an extension from the question just before the one you read. With Building Canada Strong and the federal government kind of changing its approach to funding initiatives federally, is there an opportunity are you going to be amending or augmenting the guidebook in the near future to sort of address those changes?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, the housing landscape can change so quickly. We don't have any plans of amending it right away, but that's definitely something that we want to think about. So through HAF, one of our initiatives, where this all comes from, is all surrounded about building capacity in both the city and in the sector. So what that looks like is guidebooks like this. We have an event next week, but we want to also explore some other ways of communicating all these resources with the sector. So whether that's like a community of practice or something like that. So I don't know if it would look like amending the guidebook necessarily, but we definitely want to be responsive to the housing landscape and to how it's changing. Like Building Canada Homes is an exciting thing, and it looks different from what we've seen before. So good question, and basically more resources to come in some fashion.
Can I ask one follow-up question to that really quick too? Another thing that I'm doing a lot more is work in Indigenous housing. I haven't had a chance to read the whole guidebook or anything, but How much of an asset would it be to that end?
Yeah, so there's definitely considerations for Indigenous housing in all of our guidebooks. In our engagement process, we reached out to Indigenous housing providers to see what are some of the roadblocks specific to their experience, and so we tried to incorporate that in our main affordable housing guidebook. So, and we also have been working closely with our Indigenous Relations Office to see how we can connect to the Indigenous housing sector more specifically. So there are some considerations for that in our guidebook. So yeah, at your leisure, you can take a peek.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hannah?
Thanks for the presentation. I just wanted to ask how you see this work as being connected, either learning from or maybe having things to offer to work going on in other Canadian municipalities. Do you see these guidebooks, I guess, as being like pretty specific to the City of Edmonton? Yeah, if you could speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are some resources right now on a more provincial level. These guidebooks that we produced, we didn't want to replicate what's already out there because like I said, there are some great resources on how to build this in general. These guidebooks dial really into the Edmonton building code, specific, permitting processes that you can experience at the city. The idea here was that this could be a tool for folks to look at early in the project process and understand okay, so when we're applying for city funding, this is the specific steps we'll go through. I think it might be a good tool for other municipalities to replicate if they don't already have it. But yeah, these guidebooks are fairly specific to the Edmonton experience, and that was intentional because we wanted them to be quite practical. Yeah, but again, there are national, provincial resources that we looked at, and we tried to glean information from those and make it more specific to the City of Edmonton specifically.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a comment from Lara in the chat. We wrote the accessible guidebook as a great introduction for anyone to use and learn about how to make their project more accessible.
Yes, absolutely. And shout out to Laura. She was instrumental in putting the accessible guidebook together. So I'm glad to see you here, Laura.
Anybody else with any questions want to throw up a hand or put something in the chat? Okay, well, with that, perhaps we'll give you the rest of your lunch hour back. I'll put an email address in the chat as well that you can, if a question comes to your mind later and you want to ask the team, you can reach the housing team at affordablehousing@edmonton.ca. I'll put that in the chat as well. And thank you very much to everybody for coming today and for your interest in affordable housing.
Thanks all.
Bye.